Welcome in to Greenville Grit, Greenville residents in touch on 103.7 WTIB. This is the local show that keeps you connected and in touch with the issues that affect what's happening in your community. Greenville Grit is sponsored by Ribeyes, Kid Construction, and Greenville Toyota. Now, here are your hosts for Greenville Grit, Terry Williams and Michael Overton.
Good evening and welcome to Greenville Grit. I'm Terry Williams.
And I'm Michael Overton. Terry, we are in our third installment of the Greenville City elections going on. We have Terry Boardman, candidate for District 4. Terry, thank you for coming on the show tonight.
You're welcome.
Can't wait to have discussions with you, find out a little more about you, your background, and why you're running, and then, you know, some of the what you've been seeing within the city and things that you can bring and change with our city government. So before we do it, though, Terry, we always thank the sponsors and that allow the show to go on since the very beginning. Greenville Toyota, thank you for your continued support. If you're looking for a new Toyota or Scion or a new used car, go see Craig Gillis and the Greenville Toyota team. You can visit them on the web at greenvilletoyota.com across from Fresh Market in Greenville if you want to see them in person. And also, you can call them at 321-3000. Thank you for Ribeyes Steakhouse. Continued support. Check them out. I ate there Saturday night. Fantastic meal. Absolutely. And so you look for a steak and chicken.
Pork chops are delicious.
I don't even know what else. We got a lot of stuff.
Big salad bar.
The salad bar is fantastic, but also just a great atmosphere and good local ownership. Make sure you go visit them. They are on the corner of Arlington and Fire Tower, as well as the location in Williamston, and then the Overton Group. Real estate professionals serving all of Eastern North Carolina. Commercial real estate leasing, sales, business brokerage, property management, and residential brokerage. We're going to take our first commercial break. We'll be back in 2 minutes to start talking with Mr. Terry Boardman. Welcome back to the Greenville Grit. I'm Michael Overton with my co-host Terry Williams. Terry, again, this is our third installment of what we're doing. We're interviewing every candidate.
That's right.
If they want to come on the show. Hopefully they'd love to. And so it's a good opportunity for us to get to know the people who are running, who are first time running or who have never held office before. But it also is going to give us an opportunity and the candidates an opportunity who are incumbents to defend their records if they want to do that. So with that being said, we have Mr. Terry Boardman. Terry, you are running for District 4, and so we'd love to know a little bit about you and how long you've been in Greenville, why you're running, and whatever else you can tell us.
Sure. My name is Terry Boardman. I've lived in Greenville for 30 years. I am a certified public accountant, have been for 43 years. I still teach at ECU as a lecturer in operations management. Before that, I taught in the public school system for 7 years, and before that, I was a consultant for 35 years, traveling throughout the Southeast in basically financial consulting for boards of directors of various types. The reason that I'm running is I have been a vocal critic of the city over the last 4 or 5 years, more than that since 2000, as I see some of the problems with the financial statements. And about 5 years ago, I did meet with the people in the city and explained to them what I thought were some of the problems in reviewing the financial statements and watching their meetings. And it was taken by them like a grain of salt. What has bothered me lately is over the last 2 years, there have been 12 increases in fees and taxes. And then the federal government comes down and looks at the forfeiture account and freezes it because the accounting records at the city are not up to snuff. So consequently, I thought the only way that I'm going to have a significant input into the financial situation with the city is to basically get in as a city council person and see if I can affect some of the changes.
Right.
I do want to mention because people will sit there and say, no, there hasn't been 12 increases in fees and taxes. I would like to just briefly relate what I did research on over the last 2 weeks, looking at the city council meetings, and I want to list for you these 12 increases in fees that taxpayers in Greenville have had to pay. Number one was the city council that you have today voted in a large privilege tax increase back in 2014. It was so egregious that the state overruled it based upon greed.
That's right.
And Terry, on that one, if you recall, the state actually utilized Greenville as an example in
They
the
used
legislative
this for an
chambers.
example.
Correct. They, in fact, the state specifically said Greenville because they went retroactive to the 1st of 2014. It was quite a massive increase that the state finally overruled. Number two, the city council of today voted in a 2% capital fund increase to your property taxes. They then turned around and voted in another 2% tax increase for the state action on the excessive privilege taxes. Now that one there met with a lot of opposition from the public, but the city council went ahead and did it anyway. And a year later, they found out that it was really not necessary,
Right.
and they rescinded it, but the damage had been done.
Right.
They voted in a 9% sanitation increase in 2014. They voted in a 15% stormwater fee increase in 2014. In 2015, GUC came in with a 5% increase in the water. GUC also came in, number 7 was a 6% increase in the sewer charges also. Number 8, the city council voted in a 5% sanitation increase for 2015. They voted in a 13% stormwater increase in 2015. They propose a 2.5 cent or 5% increase if the bond issue goes forward, which is something we can talk about down the road, for not only transportation, of which I agreed with until such time that they put $5 million worth of pork in there, and I'm certainly going to be against this bond issue. And number 11 was a 3% increase in sanitation fees coming up in 2016 that they voted in, and they voted in a 10% increase in stormwater fees in 2016. So there you have it. This present city council has voted in 12 fees and tax increases, and some of them were quite hefty, double digit. The public, I think, is getting to the point where this is just absolutely ridiculous. And that's why I am running for city council, is I have the opinions of a substantial number of taxpayers, and they have just said this is enough. We do not need all these increases at all.
And so that leads us to earlier in the year. We've had you talk before about the budget and going through the different areas and being able to find funds that are in different accounts along the way that possibly could have taken the place of one or more of these tax increases.
Right, and I believe that the one that I'm zeroing in on right now is the $83 million that's sitting in the bank account over in Raleigh that the Greenville Utilities has sitting there, $83 million. That really is the city of Greenville's money, because the Greenville Utilities is a department of the city. And to have $83 million over in Raleigh in a 0.5% savings account is absolutely ridiculous. I recommended to them quite strongly that this bond issue be funded out of that $83 million. In fact, I did an analysis of Duke Energy, and Greenville Utilities. And I believe, based upon my analysis and standard industry norms, that that account is overfunded by as much as $40 million. And that money is available to the city for some of these transportation needs. I did not get any favorable response from either the city or from Greenville Utilities. But folks, $83 million is a lot of money.
Well, I think, and you are talking about the fund with Greenville Utilities, but I think when you came on last time, Terry, we had the discussion about the vehicle replacement fund. I mean,
Yes.
we still, I guess part of my concern and questions as a citizen is how many of these funds are out there and how much cash is the city sitting on?
Well, my assessment of that is that the city had reached in this last year to some of these overfunded accounts.
After we criticize them.
After we criticized them, especially for this budget right now. They took money, they didn't take any money out of vehicle replacement, so there's at least, I would say $3 million there. There's still money in the health insurance account that you could use. But the real biggie right now, by far, is that real fat Greenville Utilities account that easily could be used to pay for the infrastructure needs.
Right.
Will it be? I don't know. I'm definitely going to vote against the bond issue. Number one, it's very costly. That bond issue is going to cost us $6 million in interest over the next 20 years, regardless of the small 4.5% interest rate. The pork that's in there, there's $5 million worth of pork in there, and the fact that we have the money available. I wouldn't even care if we borrowed the money from that account and paid Greenville Utilities 1% or 2%. They're only getting 0.5% on the money now.
Right.
Absolutely.
And
Right.
that would really be just taking the money from your right pocket and putting it in your left, because we really need to get our roads done. But there is $5 million in just plain pork out there.
Well, I think what impresses me about you, Terry, is even if everybody doesn't agree with the opinion about what you think about where the funds are or what needs to be done or touching the Greenville Utilities, is that you do have the knowledge in the background to be able to delve into that budget. And this council has not done that. They haven't gone through the budget and tried to find the areas or the ways that they can either cut back or get the funds from one area. And, they just haven't done it. They haven't done their homework. And I feel like you've done more homework just sitting back trying to figure out what they're doing and what decisions they're making, and we can see that they haven't been the best for Greenville. We're sort of in a mess.
Yeah, thank you. The real issue here is who does the city council work for? And I have always been an advocate of the taxpayers. I think that it's very important when you sit at a city council chair that you keep the taxpayers and the voters and the citizens in mind. And that doesn't mean that you listen to everything and agree with everything that management says. You have to evaluate it and come up with your own opinion if what management is telling you is the right thing. And in some cases, it's going to be difficult for management to listen to me because I am going to question some of these things that they come up with. And had those questions been done in the 2000 to 2014 time frame, I believe we would be in better shape financially, and we would have our roads completed, and we would have a lot of the things done that makes for good economic sense.
I mean, there's no doubt we have enough money in a vehicle replacement fund still to take care of the issue on some of the worst road
I know,
conditions.
that's right. I
I mean,
agree with
if
that.
I'm not mistaken, the majority, some of the members of the current council, when the Good Roads Initiative came out 2 years ago, voted against putting that money out and moving it from, I guess, one account into this fund to replace the roads. They voted against that. But can you imagine how bad the roads would be had we not
That's
spent
right.
the $4 million.
Had to do something with.
Well, the beauty of the $4 million is, I think it was Max Joyner and a couple other people got involved with it and voted it in. The beauty of the $4 million is we have the roads being done right now, and it has not made one dent.
That's unbelievable, isn't it?
In the financial operations of the city, not
No.
one dent. That money's been sitting there doing nothing, and now it at least has paved roads. So, and I think you're absolutely correct. One of the reasons that I'll vote against this bond issue is that we have about $3 million in the budget for new paving next year. And the way that the city works, it takes a couple of years to burn up that money.
Right.
So the bond issue is not absolutely unequivocally critical at this particular juncture. And with all that pork in there and the fact that there's money available in other departments within the city to use, I just can't see spending $6 million on interest for this bond issue.
So if the bond does not pass, then the city would be forced to look at some of the funds we've talked about, as well as the Greenville Utilities Fund.
They'd have to borrow some
They
money
would have to borrow it from somewhere.
on some of the worst roads.
to get.
Oh,
and the
yeah,
other
but-
thing, Terry, is that we already have spoken about this several times. Every time we've talked about the bond, is that bond is only really going to cover some areas they need repaired on Arlington. It isn't even going to touch some of the other vital areas. They're going to have to get the money from somewhere else to handle pressing other roads that won't be handled until another bond is proposed, which probably won't be 3 to 5 years.
Right. The bond issue is not structured properly.
Right.
Let's be clear here. This $15.8 million bond issue did not have the approval of the bond that esteemed bond committee that was put together. They did not have that approval. It is just a hodgepodge of wants that really are not necessary. And therefore, I think the best course of action is to vote against the bond issue and then come back with the new city council next year in 2016 and put together something that makes sense. This bond issue does not make sense. And it's not going to hurt us because there's $3 million in the budget for roads. It's going to take them at least a year and a half or 2 years to spend that. So voting against the bond issue is not going to hurt the city of Greenville or the transportation system.
And it's not going to put us in a cash crunch either, is what you're
And
saying.
it's not going to put us in a crunch. We've got more cash. If things go the way they are right now, the city of Greenville's got $126 million in cash sitting in the bank, in cash. I mean, at a one.
Well, no, but one of the candidates that's an incumbent says that's fiscal responsibility. What do you have to say about that?
That's poor cash management,
Right.
is what it is. Because the bottom line is, at 1/4% interest that you're getting on it, and you're going out and borrowing money at 4%, anybody in town will tell you that that's a lose-lose situation. No, it's not. We've got more cash in this city bank account that really, quite frankly, is not doing us any good sitting in Raleigh.
Should be investing it.
Well, the other thing that really bothers me is ever since because we both served on the advisory committee, and one of our strong comments was, please, this council get together and start looking at a bond schedule going forward. And they haven't even mentioned it. Maybe one time right after one of the meetings. They haven't even looked ahead. They have no vision about what's going to happen after this does pass or doesn't pass. They haven't even looked ahead.
You're absolutely right. There is no financial strategy in place.
None.
Whatsoever. And that is why you come up with 12 tax and fee increases. It seems like a patchwork of financing that makes no sense
Right.
whatsoever. So the reason that I am going for city council is to try to get some financial stability in the organization and to have a long-range plan. Also, by the way, I'm very interested in either a finance commission, finance committee,
Right.
That's
or
what I asked
at a
about.
minimum, an internal auditor reporting directly to the city council.
Right.
Because we should not ever have the federal government come in here and freeze one of our cash accounts because of inadequate accounting.
Right.
Well, the
That-
scary thing is that could cause the federal government, if they're freezing one, who's to say they might not look at some other ones while they're here?
Well, what it normally does is it triggers the state to come in.
Right.
And the state will start looking at it through the local government commission. Once your name gets out there as inadequate accounting records, the vultures come in and start
Right.
auditing everything.
And that cost us too. Was it $47,000?
Yep, $47,000.
What could we be doing with that?
A massive amount of money for a forfeiture account that's $400,000.
Right. Exactly.
Well, I think right now is a good opportunity
Would
to take
be.
our second commercial break, and then we'll come back and
Okay.
maybe we can talk about some of your other ideas for what you can bring to the city. So we'll be back in 2 minutes with Terry Boardman, candidate for District 4. East.
Welcome back. We've had an excellent discussion today with Terry Boardman, who is a candidate for District 4, running against Rick Smiley in the November election. So thank you so much for all the information you've given us today concerning Greenville's finances. It's been interesting and really informative. This really will blow your mind to see the increases written on a piece of
On a
paper.
piece of paper, it's
like
pretty
this.
ugly.
I mean, that's pretty much kind of says it all, like you said. So thank you for sharing this and giving it in a
You're
concise,
welcome.
You're message.
Well,
I want to point out that if you don't know me, you'll find out that I speak for myself. And one of the problems that we do have with the current city council is the fact that they've got block voting. It's always been 4-2, 2-4, 4-2, 2-4, 4-2, and there may have been some comments made by certain individuals that, as I'm sitting watching on TV, I say, that makes a lot of sense. Well, then the same individual turns around and votes in a block.
Right.
And we cannot move forward as a city if we have the city council people in lockstep with themselves. And these 4-2 votes, you will see that I will vote if I get in there for what I think is right for the citizens of Greenville, and not necessarily what is right for my buddy sitting next to me. And this has been a very, very big problem over the last 5, 6, 7 years, this block voting. And these taxes and these fees going up is the result of that. We need to have independent thinkers on that city
Right.
council.
Well, Terry, my question is, and some of the things that Terry Williams and I get very frustrated about is we've lost a lot of people in our city really over the last year, and we keep hearing rumors more are leaving, and
talking
we've
about
lost
employees. Yes.
and we've lost economic development director. And what do we do in this city from your standpoint to bring jobs? Because I feel like that, in my opinion, that is what creates the tax base, and that's what allows the city
Right.
to grow.
Well, first of all, what you have to do to get jobs is that you have to have a solid city council. And by that I mean when the city council comes up with 12 increases like this, people do not understand that companies come to town with individuals. They are not companies in and of themselves. Each one of those people, each one of those companies has an executive team, has people that they're going to bring in. And we have to welcome them, and we can't welcome them with increases in sanitation fees every year.
This is coming up
or,
every year.
Taxes every year. One of the things that brought me to Greenville 30 years ago was the fact that our taxes were low in this city. That is no longer the case. Economically, from the standpoint of owning a home in Greenville, it is not beneficial to live in Greenville. And in order to do that, we're going to have to bring some financial stability to the city of Greenville. And that is what I think is number one. And number two, I think we have to go at this as in a concentrated effort of getting people to understand that we're a first-class city. And if we're a first-class city in any number of aspects, people will come here. And that means lower crime. It means nice schools. It
Right.
needs roads that don't have potholes in them. That type of stuff.
That's right.
Well, it's been a good show, and thank
been
you
great.
for this. And again, you can, if you want to see this again, you can go onto YouTube
That's right.
and type it up. All of our shows are on YouTube. You can also visit us again on Friday night at 6:30, Saturday morning at 9:30 on Cable 7. Terry, thank you for coming on. It was wonderful to hear you, and good luck in your election.
Thank you very much for having me.
And so until next time, we'll see you next week on the Greenville Grit.